Sex sells when it comes to marriage equality, with a male modeling agency lending its talents to a new fundraising campaign. A reprieve for a woman facing deportation proves just how important marriage can be. Meanwhile, more voters than ever support the freedom to marry. So why aren't politicians listening? I'm Matt Baum with Stop8.org, and welcome to This Week in Prop 8 for March 28, 2011. Sexy torsos. A group of male models are showing their support for marriage equality by signing their names to a Shepard Fairey poster, which will then be auctioned off to support the grassroots organization FAIR. It's a lovely poster, and it's very nice that the new model management company is supporting this project. But I gotta say, the primary appeal of these men is probably not their signatures. You gotta wonder if maybe they could have raised more money and awareness just by auctioning off pictures of themselves. I mean, the only reason I'm even talking about this is so that I can flash shirtless men on screen at the top of the show. There's nothing better than sex for getting people interested in a cause. But either way, it's very nice that they're doing this, and hopefully we'll see more things like this that feature people of color, women, diverse body types, the disabled, something representative of our entire community. Turning to Prop 8 news, this week the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals turned down a request to lift the stay that prevents gay couples from getting married right now. Even though Prop 8 has been already found unconstitutional, it's still in place while the anti-gay industry appeals. That's hurting gay couples right now who need access to marriage. And even though we can demonstrate the harm that keeping Prop 8 in place causes, the court wants to keep it safe until all the appeals are done. So why is access to marriage so important? We got a great answer to that question this week when a judge in New York halted the deportation of a woman because she was able to get married. For more information on that case, let's talk to her attorney, Levi Soloway. So I'm talking today with Levi Soloway. He has great news this week for binational couples. So Levi, tell me a little bit about Monica and Christine.
Monica came from Argentina about 10 years ago, and in the process of getting together in their relationship, they decided to move in together. And Christina at the time was finishing her studies up at college in Buffalo, and Monica and Christina went up on a bus to go get the last of her things to move them down to New York City. And while they were on the bus, it stopped in Rochester, New York, and the Border Patrol got on the bus, asked everybody for their papers, and found that Monica was in the United States without legal status and took her away. And Monica was detained in a detention facility in New Jersey for 3 months, and she was eventually released and then placed into deportation proceedings.
And what does that look like? What happens when somebody's in deportation proceedings?
Of course, deportation proceedings are, they're somewhat of a euphemism because there's not a lot of proceeding. You go to court, you appear before a judge, and a judge determines whether you have any right to stay in the United States. And unfortunately for Monica, as for many of the foreign spouses and partners of gay and lesbian Americans, she didn't have any kind of visa status, and she didn't have any other kind of legal avenue to stay in the United States. But she was married to a U.S. citizen. She was married to a U.S. citizen, and she did want to assert her right to stay in the United States on the basis of that marriage.
So fast forwarding to their day in court, what were you arguing, and what made things different this time?
Well, what we argued this week in court was that the judge and the attorney representing the Department of Homeland Security should take note of the changing landscape of the Defense of Marriage Act. And what does that mean specifically? It means that they should take note of the fact, first, that the President and the Attorney General announced that they would no longer defend the Defense of Marriage Act on February 23rd, that they found that the Defense of Marriage Act was unconstitutional, but also that Congress, both the House and the Senate, were moving now to repeal it, and that legislation had been introduced. And then, of course, that previously this summer, federal district court judge had ruled Defense of Marriage Act to be unconstitutional. And that taken together, all three branches were essentially working on, the demise of the Defense of Marriage Act, that it would be premature to deport the spouse of a lesbian American citizen while that was happening, when the Defense of Marriage Act was the only obstacle standing between them and a green card. And
how did they respond? How did the court respond?
Well, of course, we were very, very pleased that both the judge and the government attorney were very open to this argument and agreed to adjourn the proceedings and to allow Christina and Monica to pursue a marriage-based immigration case to its conclusion.
What do you put that down to? Why were they so receptive to this argument?
Well, I think that in part it's the conversation that we're having in the United States outside of the courtroom. I think that in part it's the polling, it's the polling data and the momentum of public opinion that really no longer sees gay and lesbian couples who are married as deserving of discrimination, and really there's really a lack of an argument for the other side, and and the other part of it is that the personal narrative of Christina and Monica wanting to be together and living together as spouses and being lawfully married under the laws of the state of Connecticut in this case, that's a very powerful narrative. And when you look at them and you see their life together and you see in the paperwork they've provided all the evidence of a bona fide marriage, it's hard to say to them, you know what, sorry, we have to deport your spouse. So I think that it's a combination of the things going on outside the courtroom, and it's the courage and the determination and ultimately the personal story of that couple that persuades both the judge and the government attorney to do the right thing.
So what are the next few months going to look like for this couple?
Well, we have some more filings to, now that we've been given this opportunity, we're going to file some more paperwork in support of the marriage case, and we're going to keep track of the marriage case and see how the Immigration Service handles it. In any marriage case, usually it's a heterosexual couple, but in any marriage case, it's typically a process that takes 6 to 12 months. So we have a ways to go, and we hope that ultimately their case will be approved, that Monica will get a green card on the basis of the marriage, and therefore she will no longer have to go to immigration court.
Well, we'll cross our fingers and hope for the best. Levi Soloway is an immigration attorney and founder of Immigration Equality and Stop the Deportations. Levi, thanks so much for speaking with us.
Thanks, Matt.
Now, keep in mind that these legal proceedings are going to take months to years, but there were some encouraging signs this week on DOMA repeal. We're now just one vote shy of passing repeal in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Getting it passed there is a big first step, and it'll build momentum for full passage in the Senate. Of course, the National Organization for Marriage is pushing back with all kinds of lies about DOMA. We put out a video last week that debunks all their crazy claims. You can click over here to watch it. And if you haven't contacted your members of Congress yet to tell them why we need DOMA overturned, there's never been a better time. That's because new polls show that a majority of Americans want DOMA repealed. It's a big shift in public opinion, and smart politicians are listening. This week in Colorado, the Senate passed a civil unions bill by a pretty large margin, 23 to 12, which included some Republicans voting for the bill. Now it goes to the House, where there should be enough votes to pass it, but other Republicans may try to kill the bill with procedural tricks. And we're losing ground in Indiana. Even though the state already bans gay couples from marrying, Republicans want to add a second ban in case the first one is found unconstitutional. That's already passed the House. It passed the Senate Judiciary Committee this week, and it's likely to pass the full Senate sometime soon. Then it goes to voters, and there's some room for hope there. A new poll this week shows Indiana voters oppose the bill. But, of course, polls have wrongly shown us winning in the past. And last, there's good news coming out of Europe. Liechtenstein's parliament unanimously passed a limited form of civil unions called Partnerschaftsgesetz. In England, where they've long had civil unions, Home Secretary Theresa May promised to move forward on full marriage equality. And civil unions are coming to a tiny island off the British coast called the Isle of Man. That's a big deal because the Isle of Man is relatively rural and conservative, and not at all what the name Isle of Man might lead you to hope. Speaking of which, here are those torsos again, not for any reason, just ta-da! Now, click over here to watch some of our previous episodes, and click over here to subscribe. And if you've already done that, head on over to House.gov and Senate.gov to tell your elected officials that a majority of Americans support DOMA repeal. See you next week.